Guys, it's me, Halloween Dan, and today I thought I'd do maybe a little bit of a longer video because I want to have one of my random conversations.
You're joking. Not another one?
Sorry in advance. But this isn't just a conversation, this is kind of a debate. I want to open up the floor here. I want to have some constructive feedback from you guys because what I'm about to talk about could potentially be a little controversial. Particularly if you're a person like me. So strap in, guys, and let's open up the floor. Just before we get into the debate and what it's about, I want to just let everyone know, Barry here, I mentioned in my last video, wasn't working, but actually, now he is.
Welcome to our haunted house. Be frightened. I am here to serve you for dinner.
Lovely. Thank you, Barry. But now on to what this is really about. What am I talking about here?
It's time for another random conversation with Dan.
So what I want to talk about is, weirdly, it surrounds a Facebook post of someone else's display. I don't know whether it's a display from this year or display from past years. I'm not actually sure. But it made me laugh at first, and then it made me go, this is possibly worth debate. So if you know memes, if you like memes, there's one meme that maybe most of you will be aware of, and it's a meme of some guy. I don't know the guy's name. He's famous for basically being a bit antagonistic. He shows up on college campuses in the US and he sits behind a table and he tries to engage in some sort of quite controversial debate with people. And the meme in question is one, I don't even know what the original picture said, but it's this guy sitting behind his table, quite smug. The board in front of him is saying something to have a debate about, and it's been used and recycled a million times just to have a fun debate about usually something quite stupid, but it's been used a lot. And then whilst on Facebook the other day, I saw that someone had shared a picture of a display, a Halloween display, where someone had set up a skeleton behind a table in exactly the same pose. But it was what was on the board that was somewhat controversial and is what I want to have our debate about today. Because what was written on the board was, Home Depot props are ruining Halloween. Change my mind. And as someone who loves Home Depot props and decorations and all the rest of it, I was a bit offended. I was taken aback and I thought, ooh, this is going to stir the nest a little. Why would they say that? Why would anyone think that Home Depot's props are ruining Halloween? And I went into the comments, and what I realised was that my viewpoint is a skewed one because I come from the UK and Halloween is still not as openly available for stuff like that here. And so I'd never really taken the time to think about what it was like to grow up in a place like the US or Canada where Halloween was maybe a more generational thing. It had been celebrated for 50, 60, 70, 80 years, and everyone had their traditions and way of doing things, and then Home Depot have kind of come along and changed the script. So that's what today's debate is about. And with all debates, this is what I mean. I'm opening up the floor. I want you to hear my points of view and the points I'm going to make, and I want you to join in. I want you to say what you think on this subject in the comments. Maybe this is something you've not thought about. Maybe this is something you agree with, this point of view. Maybe this is something you disagree with. Either way, we're going to do this in a debate type of form. And so in a debate, there's always pros and cons. And so here we've got this thing, or Home Depot animatronics and props are ruining Halloween. Change my mind. My mind doesn't need to be changed. I have my opinion that I'll give at the end. But to really be fair, let's start with the cons. So I read a lot of the comments in the comments section of the original post I saw, and most people just kind of found it funny, but a lot of people were kind of agreeing with the post. Like, yes, Home Depot is ruining Halloween with its big props and animatronics. There were also a lot of people there defending Home Depot and its props and animatronics, and I didn't write in it, but I'd be one of them. I've probably just given my opinion away there. There was a lot of people in support of the post that Home Depot are indeed ruining Halloween. But how? How are they ruining Halloween, and why do people think that they are? And it's then that I had to get into a different mindset beyond my own and think about this from someone else's point of view. Now, for me, I've always been aware that Halloween and the people who celebrate Halloween are kind of divided into different groups. There's lots of divisions that you can make if you really want to, and the thing that unites us all, of course, is a love of Halloween. There are divisions in the way that people like to celebrate Halloween. You've got your entry-level people that I'd class myself as, where I'm still learning what works and what doesn't. My horn isn't solidified. It's not got to stay this way forever. It's going to change. These are people as well. Sometimes they're beginners. They're people who just want to show willing and have a few nice things out for Halloween or creepy things for Halloween. Sometimes they don't always work. Sometimes things are a bit haphazard. I know my horn can be rather haphazard, but I'm showing willing and I'm trying my best, and I want to show people I love Halloween, and I've got a little bit of everything going on. Then you've got the group that I think of as the collectors, who are people who are obsessed with the animatronics and the props, mostly the animatronics, and they love to collect them. It doesn't really matter to them so much what the animatronic is, i.e. clown, witch, whatever. They just want these animatronics. They like the animatronics for the animatronic motion, for what they can do, for the technology that's within them. That's not me, but there is a section of the community that's like that. This isn't a negative, by the way. I'm not having a go. I'm not like being down on that. If that's how you like to celebrate Halloween, enjoy yourself. And then there's this final group of people, which I think this is where this debate has kind of popped up from, which are the professionals. These are people who have celebrated Halloween for a very long time. They've developed their haunts over a very long period of time. Everything is bespoke, everything is homemade, from the animatronics to the tombstones to the pillars, everything. Even if things have been store-bought, they've adapted them, they've maybe painted them, they've changed the outfit, they've done something to make their haunt unique and bespoke and original. There's nothing about it that isn't original, and they put a huge amount of effort into lighting and sound and atmospherics, all the things that I massively love. But I think this debate's kind of come from this group of people more than anybody, because I have to imagine what it would be like to be them and see the openness at which Home Depot is flooding the market with animatronics and props. So though I don't live in North America, clearly, I can imagine, and I'm imagining myself as a professional here, that if I had spent the better part of a decade perfecting my display, building my own things, making my own animatronics, getting everything just so, nailing the atmosphere, nailing everything I want to create in my Halloween haunt. The smoke is amazing. It's just aesthetically pleasing and beautiful, and everything about it is Halloween to a T. And people love my display, and I'm known locally for the guy who does that insane, amazing display. And then one year, Gary, sorry if your name's Gary, but Gary down the street, who's never really shown that much of an interest in Halloween, and if he's ever done a display, it's always been kind of low level. Gary one year decided to go to Home Depot and spend about $800, no small amount of money, right? But with that $800 comes home with 2 to 3 of the most amazing props and animatronics you can imagine. These are all singing, all dancing animatronics that do everything. They're really, really high tech. The sorts of animatronics that if you'd have tried to buy them a decade ago, when me, the professional, was setting up my haunt, it would have cost you thousands for one of them. And now with $1,000, you can maybe have 3. And they're big and they're impressive. And all Gary has to do is go down to the local Home Depot, buy whatever he fancies, take them home, build them, and set them up on his yard. And he's done. Job done. Maybe he might add a bit of lighting, but that's about it. He just stands them out on his yard. Halloween is done. What's worse, for me, the professional who's spent a decade building a bespoke, beautiful, well thought through haunt, full of unique items, is that Gary's haunt, that's taken him maybe a day to set up, and took no extra thought process except to go down to his local Home Depot and buy these props, his haunt gets almost as much attention as mine. His haunt is celebrated locally. Hey, the guy with the cool massive skeleton or the cool moving witch. His haunt is loved by the neighborhood almost as much as my haunt. I can imagine that would get under my skin a bit, but I can imagine that if you've gone to all the effort to create a bespoke haunt, and this guy down the street has literally just spent like an hour or two building some props and sticking them up on his front garden, and his haunt is as well celebrated as yours, that would probably annoy me a bit, because it's the lack of effort and the lack of any sort of theming or anything. Anyone can do that. What I do is bespoke and original. Anyone can just buy a bunch of props and stick them out on their front garden, right? And I can imagine that being irritating. But there are other points to why perhaps Home Depot could be ruining Halloween. And I think it's that thing of over-commercialization. Halloween has always been a very commercial holiday. It's all about buying candy, buying costumes. It's always been very commercial. But I think that Home Depot has taken that, and the focus is on Home Depot more than any of the other stores because they kind of started this trend. They have broken down many of the barriers that existed beforehand. And they're barriers that still exist for people in the UK. I can imagine that if you live in the US and you came to visit the UK at Halloween time, you would maybe see something you recognize from maybe about 15 years ago. I think that's about how far behind the US, the UK is. Halloween is celebrated. People love to trick or treat with their kids and stuff. But the display aspect of it is still very much in its infancy. And although every year there are more and more things you can go out and buy for your display, where you can buy them from is still limited. You still cannot really walk into a big store in the UK and buy large-scale animatronics like Lethal Lily or a Reaper or anything like that. There's nothing in the UK that replicates what you get at like Home Depot, and now there's Lowe's and Sam's Club and all those other places. There's nothing really like it. The closest we get to it is Costco, and Costco's only really available if you have a Costco card or an account with them. So even then it's restricted to just a few people. Unless you've got a lot of money and a lot of time on your hands in the UK to throw at these sorts of things, it still doesn't really happen. So people, it's a much smaller scale event, and the decorations and the way that people display for Halloween is on a smaller scale. And I imagine there was a time when it was even like that in the US. Unless you went to Spirit and could afford to buy a very expensive prop that just did this, or unless you made your own stuff and made a bespoke display, I'm guessing, because I don't know, but tell me if I'm wrong, that it was probably everything, though there was a lot of people who did displays and put things out for Halloween, it was all still quite low-level, small, cheaper-end items for the majority. And then there'd be that one house in every neighborhood, say, that has a big display that of mostly bespoke things, but maybe they had a bit of money to buy some of these animatronics. What Home Depot have done, and then they've been followed by Lowe's and the rest of them, is they've taken down those barriers to the masses. They've made things widely available, widely affordable, and incredibly advanced. And with those barriers to advanced, cool, and affordable props removed, people obviously went out and bought big advanced props and decorations. And though cool to begin with, perhaps what's ended up happening is because they're so much more affordable than they once were, and Halloween has grown, even in America, as a bigger holiday than it ever was, what starts to happen is there would only be one place in every town that maybe had animatronics and props. Now, every other house might have animatronics and props. I know it depends on where you live and weather conditions and stuff, but I can imagine that if they were more widely available here in the UK, there would be a lot more people with animatronics and props, big props, here too. And I think that's what's happened. As they've become more easy to get hold of and they're relatively more affordable than they used to be, I think that more and more people have jumped on the bandwagon and have started putting out big things. And whereas things like the 12-foot Skelly, I can imagine when that first appeared on the scene, it blew everyone's minds, and there maybe only was one or two people in an entire town that had a 12-foot Skelly. I can imagine now there's a time where maybe every few houses has a 12-foot skelly in certain neighborhoods. And the kids are like, wow, look at the 12-foot skelly. Let's go to the next house. Oh, they've got a 12-foot skelly too. And then let's go to the next house. Oh, another 12-foot skelly. And it kind of takes away some of the fun and the surprise of Halloween. I know you can change them up and make them look different, but I can imagine, because it is imagining, because it isn't a case here in the UK, that it would be maybe a little bit tiresome that if at every single house you saw the same props and animatronics, and if then people haven't even bothered to theme anything, they've literally just bunged them out on their front yards, I can imagine it would begin to irk people. Maybe not so much the actual people trick-or-treating, but the people who'd been doing the displays for a long time, that now every other house has a 12-foot skelly, every other house has a lethal lily, every other house has the Reaper, whatever it is. These big animatronics and props that have come out of Home Depot over the last few years, and now suddenly they're a mass thing. Every few houses has one or both versions of them, or all of them, or whatever. And maybe that repetition where everyone ends up with the same stuff, it's the perfect commercialist type thing where everyone just ends up with the same stuff and it becomes kind of generic and boring. Maybe that is where Home Depot have sort of contributed to ruining Halloween. But now it's time for the pros. And I don't think the pros need to take up as much time, because I think you kind of know what my opinion is. And this is where my opinion on this matter really steps in. Because my opinion is exactly the opposite of everything I've just talked about. I believe that Home Depot props are amazing. First and foremost, it's amazing that for $250 you can buy something like Lethal Lily, who stood right next to me. It's amazing to me that you can drive to a store that's maybe only 20 minutes from you, if that, and have access to these phenomenal animatronics and props for relatively small amounts of money. I know they're still expensive, like $300 is not a small amount of money, right? But compared to what these sorts of things once would have cost, it's a phenomenal price. And as somebody who sits here in the UK, yearning not only for accessibility to props like that to become better, I need it! But also yearning to see Halloween grow and get bigger and better here in the UK with every passing year. And I would love it 10 years from now, every other house had a display on a similar scale to mine. I can't see the negative. I understand that there is repetition, and I can understand it. Even if it was me, I could understand it being frustrating if the house across the street from me started having a display, but their display was that they just bought some animatronics and put them on their front garden with no extra thought or theming involved. Yeah, that would annoy me a little bit if it got as much attention as my display did. A little bit. But there's also another great big bit of me that'd be so pleased that someone else takes this holiday as seriously as I do. Even if they haven't put as much effort into it or imagination into it, I would still just be pleased that there are people out there who want to show affection for this holiday that means so much to me. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, there is no wrong way of celebrating Halloween. You can celebrate it however you want. Halloween is for everybody. And anything that encourages more people to get involved, to join this community and get on board and take Halloween even a tiny little bit more seriously, it's okay with me. I'm there for it. I think, bring it on. Let's do this. Let's make Halloween as big as possible. And if that means that everyone ends up with the same witch or the same skeleton, yeah, that's a little bit depressing. But maybe that could be the start of something fantastic. And I think if it brings trick-or-treaters back year after year and it makes people want to go trick-or-treating house to house, I can't see a negative. I really can't. I think it's an amazing thing, and Home Depot and stores of their ilk have done an amazing thing by completely changing the market in many respects. And as someone in the UK who we still have yet to experience that, I pray for the day when it finally happens. And there is a store in the UK where you can just go and buy these things for a relatively cheap price. And there's not just 2 or 3 things that are available, but 40 odd different things that are available. Something for every wallet. But my opinion is my opinion. And it's okay if you have a differing opinion. And that's where, once again, I need you to get involved. I want to open this debate up to you. I want you to fill the comments with what you think about this. Are Home Depot and its animatronics and props ruining Halloween? Or are they the savior of Halloween? And they've reawoken the excitement around Halloween and they're bringing it to more people and making it more available to people. Which side of the debate are you on? Anyway, guys, sorry for this slightly longer video today. I just wanted to have this debate with you. And I will see you in the next one. Keep it spooky. Bye.